the formula set up where with the prospecting automated solution, and this is kind of like, you know, we're thinking what are our own metrics, like what do we want to for our expansion team, what do we want our own metrics to be? So the formula is set up where per 60 appointments we should be getting, or if you break that down monthly, if we're getting, like, let's just say 6 to 10 appointments, we should be getting 2 to 4 listings, depending on how many appointments come in that month per set. Now, it might not happen perfectly, right? But like if we have every single component of the ultimate listing machine working properly, and we're all following up on the PVLs properly that are coming into our system, we should be able to follow that same formula, that same conversion formula. So, and I think that these guys, for example, we're going to end up probably around 20 appointments. So, 6 into 2, so 12 into 4. So, I think it might be a little aggressive, but like over time, if we can get to the point where we're doing 5 to 7 listings off of 20 appointments, I think it's a reasonable number.
20 appointments that actually
show up.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, not like that. Not just started there.
That could be. I mean, Bill. I was asking Bill yesterday.
Yeah.
He said, "How many actual appointments have you had?"
Right.
And he was guessing 6 to 7.
Yeah.
That he's actually had, and I have to look at the numbers. But he has one listing and a second one now, English Road. That he's going to list. He talked to her yesterday. She said she's giving it to him. So if that number is true, even if he had 8, that's 1 out of 4.
And that's really, and he's just getting ramped up. And he's just.
What's the number need to be though? What's like?
Even if you got 6 appointments and you got 2 listings, the math works.
So that's 2 out of 6, 1 of the 3. So 1/3.
So if he's at 8, if he's at 8 and getting 2, 30%. If you're at 30%, now some of our good agents, they produce at more like a 50%. But I'm just saying, like in a worst case scenario, if you're converting at a 30% on what, to your point, Jamie, on appointments that actually show, right, and that are there that you can get in front of and have a conversation with, that's ultimately where we want agents on our platform to be, but also our expansion team to be. So internet leads, just as a reminder, they convert like at the national average is 2%, or actually 0.05%. Good teams are at 2%. Great teams are at 4%. So we can start paying attention to kind of those metrics, our internet leads and our PVLs and appointments.
It's all based on, though, everything that's coming in every month, but what about the stuff that stays in the top of the funnel and comes back later? I mean, that's where your percentages should start to rise.
They get better over time.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where it's all about consistency.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big things, like even with our expansion team, is we got something up and running, then we got to figure out the technology, and then we had some people calling, but they were calling on this Convulso account, and that one wasn't working, and all this stuff creates inconsistencies, so it slows that funnel, it slows the sales funnel down. But I think we're at the point right now where we kind of are close to keeping, where we have something consistent. So,
well, even in your prospect, we've proven that if you let it go long enough without follow through, you lose it. Someone else got it. And that happened a couple of instances, like it's listed. Oh my God, they listed. And that was someone said, no, I'm not going to list.
Yeah, not going to list, or we're going to list with this person.
Right.
And then they listed with someone else.
Someone else.
Yeah, and it's like, seriously?
Yeah.
At least interview me.
Yeah.
What do you got to lose?
Right.
So, can I ask a question about internet leads real quick before you go there? So these guys are calling internet leads too that are coming in, or how does it?
I don't really get any internet leads, like, ever. They're in a separate campaign that I just typically don't go into, because half of them are buyer leads, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be calling on those.
Okay.
Yeah,
we definitely want you calling on those. So why don't we offline dig into that? That's a good catch. We got to figure out how to make that part of the funnel better.
Because I've only talked to like 2 of those, and I converted both of them. They're really easy. It's just I don't really see them that often.
Yeah, and there's tons of them, so we got to get them in front of you. So that's good. Okay, so if you're tuning in, whether you're whether you're joining us because you're part of our expansion team that we're building out, or maybe you're a client of ours, what we do is we try to do these trainings and pick a topic and really drill down on that topic, and the whole thing is about lead conversion. Because it's one thing to get a lead, right? It's another thing to actually convert on that lead. And lead conversion really depends on how good your sales funnel is. And there's different components of the sales funnel, which you within lead conversion. Obviously, you guys as ISAs and account executives are a huge part of that conversion. And then the agent also plays another big part, right? And then automation plays another big part. Knowing the niche that you're going after and understanding their mindset is another huge part, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about the mindset of a for sale by owner. And so one of the things that I think we all agree on is that the better we understand what the for sale by owner is thinking, what their motivation, why they are doing what they're doing, the better we're going to be able to help them, and the better we're able to convert. Would we agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is too is my goal is to convince everybody why agents should be working for sale by owners and make it a big part of their business. So these are actually hot off the press stats. If you go to inman.com, you can check out some of these stats that I'm about to share with you. But what's interesting is that agents are extremely relevant still. Like there's this whole conversation like what's happening, and so this is something kind of interesting, just a trend here. Agents versus for sale by owner. You got NAR generational trends reports show record highs and lows. So for sale by owners haven't budged from their record low of 8%. Okay, so there's 8% of the market that's for sale by owner. Okay, and out of that 8%, almost 90% of them end up working with an agent in some way, shape, or form. Okay, now there's a debate happening right now about that, where how much of it is assisted services when they're working with an agent, but still a large majority of them end up working with an agent. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why aren't they working with us, right? And why, how are we attractive enough to a for sale by owner to get in their world, position ourselves as a trusted advisor, so they come to us and use us instead of using one of our competitors. And that's kind of, would you agree that's really the question?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm going to just kind of flip through some slides here. Why should a for sale by owner work with an agent? Okay, this is kind of mind blowing. Okay, 185,000 to 190,000 last year was the average sale price of a for sale by owner. Okay, look at the difference with an agent. 250,000. Huge difference.
Oh yeah.
What goes into that number, you think, Ron?
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, for sale by owner is a limited amount of information they can get to even price their house.
Yeah.
An agent is a vast amount of information to decipher and to translate. Also with market conditions and with the technology an agent generally has, they can reach a lot more buyers faster than any for sale by owner can. And when you have that kind of exposure, perfect example, we have a buyer just hit the market, saw open house, I called it that next morning. They had 5 offers the first day on the market because it was listed and they reached so many people. So, for sale by owner doesn't realize they could be so drastically underpriced, especially in this market.
And actually, that's what the article said. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because as the markets change, for sale by owners and even they were talking about millennials, why more and more of them are still turning to an agent is because they're afraid they're going to get the price wrong.
Right.
So as much information is out there, they're still turning to an agent for that expertise.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they don't know if they're pricing it too low or too high, and in a lot of cases, it's too low. So, and what's interesting is for sale by owners sell faster sometimes, but that's because they
It's a bargain.
It's a bargain, right? It's a bargain. That's why it's selling. So, so I think that's just important for our mindset to say, look, is this a market that agents should be working in? And the answer is when you got 90% of them going back to agents, I personally believe it's a market that we should pay attention to, and it's still very relevant in 2018.
Oh,
big
for
time.
sure.
So, so why should they work with us? That's the question. And so for the agents that are on our prospecting and marketing automation platform, that's the question that you have to ask yourself too. Why should they work with you?
Mm-hmm.
Why should a FSBO work with you? And if you're prospecting, if you're presenting your, you're kind of even doing a discovery meeting over the phone, that's the question they're thinking in the back of their head. Why should I even entertain you?
Why should you use my products or services?
That's right. Why?
Why?
Right? And here's the thing, it can't be because I'm great at what I do.
Or I'm number one.
Or I'm number one. Or I'm
Who
awesome.
is number one?
Right? And so I just write this down. Anything like that is it's white noise.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the TV screen back in the old school when you had when you turn the channel and that nasty, that's what they hear. That's what they hear.
You gotta adjust the tinfoil.
Yeah, you gotta adjust it. That's right.
See, I'm still
That's
lost.
right.
Still lost.
Still
What are
lost.
you talking about?
No, yeah. I'm like, really? I'm like, so why do they want to sell on their own? I think that's the first place to start. There's a lot of reasons, and Ron, feel free to chime in on
Well,
this.
it's one question. The most powerful question you can ask a for-sale owner.
Yeah.
What is the single most critical issue you want to avoid?
Right.
Is it commission? Is it a bad experience?
Yeah.
What is it? And once you find out that,
Yeah.
now you go back to the fact, well, this is why you should use me.
Right.
Simple as that.
That's good.
But people are afraid to ask that question
Yeah.
because that's an objection. Now you gotta handle it.
Mhm.
So,
And we're gonna get to that, and
Mhm.
actually, we're
Oh,
gonna get
yeah.
to how to handle the objections, and, because if you don't know what to say when you get that, then I understand why people are afraid to ask it.
you need
So-
you need to find out if the seller in fact there's a tension here between agents and them in
Yeah.
general, why is there a resistance?
Mhm.
And then, again, figure out, well, how do I remove that?
Right.
Or reduce it to a point where they're gonna talk to me.
Right.
And
You're fine.
they'll give me their attention and consider me. So, again, it is what it is.
So, one of the things that when we're working with for-sale owners is to think about is also how to put ourselves in a position where we're asking ourselves this question: what do we have in place to speak to their concerns? So if they have a commission concern, how do we speak to the commission concern? And what was interesting is 37% of them are commission concerns. The rest is because they just didn't want to work with an agent.
Mm-hmm.
So how many times do we talk to a for-sale owner and the first thing they say is commissions,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's not necessarily like the real concern.
No.
Could you speak to that a little bit, Ron?
Yeah, the thing that gets me is, first of all, I don't know why somebody has a commission concern, when in fact, it's a free service until it's closed. Then the commission is included in the purchase price, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The situation being, you're gonna get professional assistance, advertising, marketing, you're gonna get advice, counseling, everything you need, and that performance-based individual is not guaranteed that you're gonna pay them.
Right.
Unless they perform. And performance means not that they brought a buyer in and pushed you hard to accept a low offer. It is, they got the best offer possible based on the market they're in. And the fact is that at the end of the day, if you're walking away from that closing table and happy with the net amount or the proceeds check you have in your hand, then you're glad you used an agent and you're happy to pay that commission.
Right.
But why is commission even being talked about? I didn't earn it yet.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset you have to have when you talk to an individual who's thinking about, I don't want to pay a fee. You don't have to, unless
So
I perform.
so in other words, if we make upfront, the commission's a big deal,
Mhm.
and we engage in that conversation upfront, then it's gonna become a big deal.
It's an issue.
Right?
I mean, why do we even
Does that
talk
make sense,
about it?
guys?
You know, why is there a long conversation about it?
Yeah, does that make sense? Because like if they're asked, because they're gonna ask, well, what's your commission? Right? Or how much,
Yeah.
what do you charge?
Yeah, and the sad part about it is they're thinking, okay, $200,000 house,
Yeah.
6%, 12 grand.
Yep,
All right? It's like, wait a minute. First of all, I'm not getting the 12.
right,
I'm working off a 6.
right.
And then I have to split that.
Yep.
So it goes down. But the whole key is this, it's built into the price of the house.
Right.
And quite frankly, the appraisers know that, it's not gonna create a problem with appraisals and what have you. The whole thing is, it's mute
Right.
until it closes.
It closes.
If it doesn't close, the day of closing, everybody gets paid except the broker.
Right.
The lawyer could get paid, the appraiser got paid, the surveyor got paid, everybody got paid except the individual that literally made this happen, because it didn't happen.
Right.
And they're back to square one.
So with that, you know, the concept of not talking about commission
Yeah.
up front, you know, when someone says, I don't wanna pay commission, are we going into that right now, or are we gonna?
I want to hold. We're gonna get into objections, but it's a really good question, and we need to make sure we have the proper ammunition to handle that objection and to deal with that mindset. And I think just on the surface, just if we could all agree and understand right now, is that you definitely don't want to make commission an issue up front, because you'll lose that battle more times than not.
You're arguing about something that isn't even
Because
there.
yeah, because remember, like, if we have a mindset that we're in discovery, right, and that we're just trying to figure out if we can help them or if it even makes sense to work together, then the commissions are kind of like putting the cart before the horse. And way before the horse, right? And now that might be their number one concern, but if we try to handle that up front when we have no relationship, right?
No rapport, no trust.
No trust.
How can you deal with it? It's money.
You can't, yeah, and that's the number one mistake agents make is and even when ISAs are on the phone, is they really kind of don't do a good enough job handling that objection, okay? Which we'll get to, but let's just catch the mindset for now.
Yeah, and it's, get the appointment, you know?
Yes.
Because if you really like the agent that's in front of you, you really love what they're going to do,
Yep.
it's no longer a commission issue.
That's right,
It really isn't. It goes away.
that's right,
It's an interview. That's all it is, a job interview.
right,
So,
that's good. So here's their dilemma, and I think the better we understand the problems that they run into, the easier it is for us to actually position ourselves to be able to help them with those things, because they're real. So for example, marketing a home online is not as easy as they think. So, like, you got this thing with Zillow, right? And you're reaching something like less than 20% of the market if you're just using Zillow to market your home. Like, you're not taking advantage of any of the agents buyers networks that are out there by working with an agent. The MLS is an obvious one, but it's not just about being on the MLS anymore. That's really, really important. It's extremely important. But you have like Facebook strategies, you have other things that our agents are doing now that get exposure to the properties that it's really hard for an owner to do on their own. So does that make sense? So the number one thing that FSBOs deal with is the marketing dilemma. How are they gonna actually get exposure to the property, not just to get an offer, but to get the best offer?
well, and again,
So-
and even
Yeah.
to this point,
Yeah.
you know, an active agent is working with anywhere from 1 to 8 buyers at any given time. If they have a team, if they're in an office with, I don't know, 50, 100 other agents, they're all working with buyers. If that agent who's after that for sale by owner, if they don't go in and see the inventory, they can't relate to it for their portfolio, or could they even tell anybody in their office about it?
Right.
So you miss that, you lose that,
Yep.
because you're doing it on your own, you're hoping buyers find it on their own, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, in today's real world, there's a lot of buyers who have contracted agents
Yeah.
because they wanna make sure that they get the best deal, that they're getting the eyes of an experienced individual to look at the house, et cetera.
Yep.
So if you're not bringing it to the inventory to where most of the buyers are, you number two, you can price it wrong. I mean, because you just didn't know what the demand is.
Yep, that's right. And so you got pricing it wrong. That's the next one. Pricing it wrong. Too high, too low, right?
Either way, you lose.
Either way, you lose. I like this one too, because I don't think they think a lot about this, but it's so true, is underestimating or overestimating how much money to spend on the curb appeal. Like, what's the first impression when somebody pulls up to your house?
Oh, it's you got it.
Right?
But what if the house just doesn't have curb appeal?
What do you do?
So what do you do?
What do you do?
You gotta get people inside it. In other words, you see all these comments, you gotta see it inside, you've got to go into this house. Because, but then again, without some help, you're not gonna get that.
The other thing is too, is like, it's interesting you mentioned that, because the description, part of marketing, is not just getting somebody to see the pictures, is the description strong enough to actually persuade somebody to go look at it, right? Because it's one thing to see the pictures, another thing to see a good description to say, oh, okay, maybe I won't prejudge that one part, if there's an issue with the description, I know that personally, like as a buyer, buying a lot of homes and then flipping them, the descriptions matter.
Oh, huge.
The descriptions matter. You can prejudge a home on a description.
But it can't be fluff and puff, it's gotta be, it's gotta give facts, is what it does.
Yeah, but for sale owners, how many of them are thinking through the proper description is my point,
Oh, half the ones I see on Zillow are just like, beautiful little ranch with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms.
Yeah, the sad part is they use the word little.
Right.
That happens, they think it's little, but someone else, I don't want little,
Right. Right. Showings, a lot of dealing with a lot of unqualified buyers is another huge issue, right? And
So you mean like they don't know any better to ask them if they're pre-qualified?
Go ahead and ask, everybody's pre-qualified when you're talking directly to the seller.
Yeah.
Sure I am.
Sure.
I can buy anything I want, okay.
So that was my question.
Yeah.
So basically, if I'm a for sale by owner and you come in, I don't know enough to vet you as, being actually pre-approved.
A lot of the times, yeah.
Right.
A lot of times that's what happens.
And then go down the road and then.
Or they'll tell you, or even if a lot of for sale owners, they're intuitive enough to ask, but they don't actually get the evidence.
Okay.
Or something like that, and so the deal gets close, and then the whole thing falls apart because they really didn't get approved. And it even happens when you're working with agents sometimes, let alone when you don't have agents to kind of help curb that problem, so.
Sadly, it does, once in a while.
Yep, so.
I was just gonna say, I've worked with a couple of expireds that have had that happen, and that's the main reason they don't wanna go back into it, because they're tired of people just walking, like really expensive houses, $1 million homes. People just wanna walk through them and see what they look like.
Sometimes I want to case them too,
Right,
believe me when I tell you,
right,
and that's scary.
yeah.
If you have an agent walking through with their client, that's not a case, that's a buyer.
Right.
But if you have somebody off the street who happened to bang on your door, oh yeah, buyer, come on in, and.
Right, yeah.
That's a really good point.
Oh, it's a safety feature, even when we do open houses as agents, there's things we do, you have a cell phone fully charged, you stand by the door if you're uncomfortable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to see a seller do that on their own, man, I'll tell you, thank God that has not happened in at least our area, but it's happened throughout this country.
That's true.
It has.
More relevant today than.
Yeah, I've heard stories, even with agents that we.
Can you imagine you've got a 12-year-old daughter and you got a for sale by owner sign in your front yard and some guy pulls up their driveway, bangs on the door. You just ran out for a minute, maybe you're next door at the neighbor's house, and here's a stranger talking to your 12-year-old daughter. Come on!
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, I don't know, see, I'm still got chills. Man, it's just scary to me, it's scary to me. Anyway.
So there's some dilemmas there.
There is.
And so the real, and we're gonna talk more about this and what the language sounds like, but the real question is this worth these potential dilemmas versus what they could potentially save in commissions?
And are you really saving anything? That's,
the key word was potentially.
Yeah,
right?
well,
And so, another thing is too, it's not on there, but when there's a for sale by owner in the front yard, usually you've got a 3% price drop.
At least
in the offer, if not greater.
Yeah, because
so whatever you're trying to save is usually built into that offer. So it's like, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? And so, and I know what everyone's thinking. Like, yeah, we all, maybe agents, if you're watching this, or we're like, hey, I know these things, or maybe we've heard these things before. The art of this whole thing is how to communicate it to the for sale by owner without offending them.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to get into in a little bit here. But that's really the art of it. So these are the facts. And so how do we turn a FSBO lead into an appointment, right? That's kind of part two. So we won't have we don't have time to like dig too far into it today, but just to kind of get started a little bit. There's a difference between an early age FSBO and a late age FSBO. So the approach has to be different. And what I mean by early age FSBO is that for some owners that they just went on, right? You have to kind of have a different mindset when you're dealing with an agent that, or with a for sale owner that just got on than somebody who's maybe felt the pain a little bit more. And so oftentimes agents aren't willing to take the time to develop a relationship with the for sale owners early on. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that professionals make in our industry is they can't see past 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. So most for sale by owners, they really only want to go a month, right? Well, in this world, in real estate, a month is nothing, right?
No, it's a long time in this world, in this market. It's a month.
What I'm saying is for our business,
right?
If we're going to be in business for 10 years, developing a relationship for a month, it's a long time to them, but for us, we should be willing to do it. That's that's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
So, we should be willing to do it. And well, I'm a really busy agent. I respect that. We're all really, really busy, but if we have a good follow-up strategy and we do the right things, which we're going to talk about in future sessions, you can do this the right way. So
Didn't you used to do stuff where you would just go to them and
go to their open house? I used to go to open houses for sale by owners.
But didn't you like give them valuable content?
I have an entire packet for a sale by owner. Let me help you sell your home. I don't want to be your agent today. I want to be it when you need me, but in the meantime, let me help you out. If somebody else wants to prospect this listing, tell them you already have an agent.
And that's the difference between the early age, where if you, we have, we're going to dive into all those materials in this working session, not this one today, but in this series, working with the FSBOs, because if you can show them you're a trusted advisor, you can show them you give them the tools, who are they going to go to?
Well, like you said, develop that relationship. If you have a relationship with them, well, why wouldn't they call you? Wouldn't it be neat if they called you just and said, I have a question, can you help? Sure. What is it? And give them an answer. Well, with that, you're there. They'll need you. They know when they're ready, and then when they're ready, it's like a warm, whole scenario because you've already got a relationship with them.
People have asked me on calls where we've done some prospecting, we've done some prospecting consulting calls. Would you rather work and deal with an early age FSBO or a late age FSBO? And my answer was both, because they both have their strengths and weaknesses, or they both have their problems that as an agent or that an agent has to deal with. So like early age, the problem is it's not low-hanging fruit. It's going to be harder to get it on the spot. You're going to have to develop a relationship with them and prove to them over time that you are a trusted advisor and it makes sense to work with you. But the problem with the late age is they've talked at that point, probably they've gotten calls from 7 to 10 other agents, and you're not the only one they're considering, right? So which problem do you want to deal with is the question, and that's where if they're late age, they're probably not going to tell you, but they start hitting that 3-week mark, that month and a half mark, most of the time. Some of them you get them no matter what. I'm never using an agent, right? 6 months later, they're still not going to consider it. Like, you get those, but then you get the ones after about a month. We better be ready. We got to be on our A game, and we can't believe everything they tell us because we've experienced. Oh, I'm going to list with another agent. Then another agent. They work with somebody else, right? Or I'm going to work with a family member. We buy into that objection, and they end up not working with a family member because another agent came along and was a better. Had a better presentation, better fit, right? So kind of rolling into the next session, we can just kind of have an open forum here before we wrap up. We're going to talk about actually digging into some of what the conversation should sound like when we're actually talking to a FSBO. So before we get to the objection, what should the conversation sound like, right? And there's a couple key things you can write down, and I'll have it on the PowerPoint for tomorrow. But the first thing is that in your opening statement, you got about 30 seconds. You got about 30 seconds, and if you don't have a strong opening statement, even if they've already been talked to by an ISA, and it's a phone consultation, or you're following up on a phone verified lead, you got a 30-second window to say the right things and to get through. And the key is to go from your opening statement to asking questions as quickly as possible. That's the key. And going from your opening statement to your benefit statement to asking questions within the shortest period of time possible is what's really important. So it should sound something like this. So, Jamie Ring.
Hello.
Hey Jamie, this is Isaiah Colton. I'm calling from the Dream Team of EXP Realty, and the reason why I was calling you because I was following up on a conversation that you actually had with an associate of mine, John, and I was just giving you a quick call because I saw in the notes here that you're looking to move down to Florida potentially, and I just was taking a quick look at the pictures, and it seemed like a nice home, so I just wanted to ask you a couple quick questions to see if we could possibly help each other out. So, and then I'm into my questions. Okay. Now, I had the advantage in that call. Somebody else already talked to me, so my intro is going to be different. So, do you guys have any questions about how I did that and why that happened? That intro happened. Okay. So, let's say you pretend you didn't talk to him.
What if there were no notes?
Right. So there's no notes, and it's still a phone verified lead. It's
Phone verified lead.
like the ISA talked to him, but there's
Yeah.
not any notes there.
Yeah.
So the call would be something like this. I'll just start over again. So, hello, Jamie.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie. This is Isaiah Colton. I was just giving you a quick follow-up call from. I'm actually from the Dream Team of EXP. You spoke to John over at Advantage U, and it seemed like you guys had a decent conversation because I had this as a follow-up. But I know you're for sale by owner, and that's kind of what we specialize in, is helping for sale by owners attract a qualified buyer. And but I had a couple questions for you, really quick. And first of all, with being for sale by owner, I'm just curious, what made you want, if you got the offer that you got like in the next 30 to 60 days, like are you able, would that be a reasonable time frame for you to accept? And then you're into your questions, and we'll drill further deep down. But the key is if we can write this down, it's the beginning. We get hung up on the intro. If we don't say that intro the right way, which we're gonna display some actual scripting here. If we don't that intro's, we knee jerks right out of the gate, knee jerk. And then if we don't have a good benefit statement, like what we do is we actually help for sale by owners attract a qualified buyer, or we actually specialize in working with for sale by owners, something along those lines, and then transition into your questions. But if you don't have a benefit statement that's speaking to them in the first 30 seconds, you're going to get all sorts of knee jerks. You're going to get all sorts of questions. And it's going to be hard to keep the conversation moving. Mm-hmm. You guys can probably speak to that too, because you're calling them all day long, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the minute they're clear on the nature of your call, and it fits them.
Yeah.
At least on that minimal level.
The minimum level. Yeah.
The minimum level, just there's something here to talk about. That conversation goes a lot better.
That's right.
When you go, and this is for ISAs and the concept, but when it comes to the agent time to call that for sale by owner, I mean, that's where they really need to find out what's important to them, what's their needs and desires, you know, did they have any bad experiences in that time? Because it's a different conversation when the agent takes the lead.
That's right.
And it's hopefully warmed up. Because the process works, and it's sometimes when the agent gets it doesn't work, and that's not the process, that's the agent, and it's developing that rapport and trust with them, because what you really want is it's a phone conversation. You want a face to face.
That's right.
And it's not about price. It's about Mr. and Mrs. Seller. What is it you're trying to do?
Right.
How can I help you? Let's see if I can help you.
Right.
You know, and that's where it's going to change that whole conversation.
Right, because the difference between in this context, the difference between a phone verified lead, they are warmed up,
Yep.
and so that conversation, Jamie, obviously a little different. You should have the notes, If you don't have the notes, I almost kind of act just like I'm curious, like, hey, I was asked to follow up with this, to follow up with you, to find out some more information, to see if we could possibly help you. And what we do is we specialize in, working with for sale owners, helping them attract qualified buyer. That intrigues them enough to keep listening, and then it lets me get into my questions. Did that answer? Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
You become a discoverer.
Yes. Then
basically.
yes.
You have to show a
Knowing
genuine
the discovery.
interest in them, not
Yeah.
in their property at this point.
Mhm.
Because you haven't seen it. But it's all about them
Yep.
right now.
So we're going to end our session there for today. But on our platform, the way that we categorize it, just so we're all on the same page, is we got a lead, which nobody's talked to, and in our world, usually the sales development specialists and the ISA are talking to them first, and then we have what's called a phone verified lead. And we call it a phone verified lead because it's been verified that it's a lead that's selling within about 3 months, or they're already on the market and it's for sale by owner, and they're open at least to talking. And that's kind of how we define a phone verified lead. And then a live transfer or a face-to-face is somebody that is a little bit further down the pipeline that is entertaining at least a discovery meeting.
Mhm.
So we're gonna pick up from there, and then tomorrow we'll dig into the actual scripting some more, and we'll get into some role play. Just wanna kind of do a couple takeaways. What did we all get out of today's session as far as like the mindset of a for sale owner? What did we learn today, if anything? Maybe we didn't learn anything, that's okay too.
I was sneaky.
I mean, I'd say you gave some pretty good, like facts and statistics for for sale by owners versus working with an agent, like the record low of 8%, like I heard him use that a lot on the phone. 90% of those end up working with an agent. Those things
Yeah.
kind of help in pitching the agent. Obviously, I don't do that yet,
Right.
but
Right,
for when I get to that point.
right.
Yeah, I think the average price point of 185, 190 versus the
Yeah.
national average of 250, that was really cool. And then the statistics, again, the kind of
The
motivation.
8%
Yeah,
statistic.
8%. And also just the mindset behind the early age ones, where you become like an advisor to them, how can I help you build that relationship and have the patience to, kind of cultivate that relationship for the
Right, because they're gonna work with somebody.
You work with somebody.
They're gonna end up working with somebody most likely.
Yeah.
Because I've had early age ones tell me I want to at least try it for a month, but call me back, and instead of pushing their buttons, I'll just put them up in a follow-up for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, they're just like, nah, give me another week, follow up
Yeah.
again, and they're like, okay, yeah, it hasn't sold, I need it sold because I'm moving next month, da-da-da-da-da, and then
That's,
they want an
that's a good
appointment.
point. If they tell you a month, always cut it in half. Whatever time frame, cut it in half. Because usually they're telling you longer than they're actually willing to wait. Or something comes up, another agent gets to them, something changes. So I always kind of a rule of thumb is cut in half.
And what they don't understand is that they want to try it for a month or whatever, and then, as he said, well, now it's getting to a point where I really got to sell it. When the seller puts themselves in that urgency situation, that's when they lose money. Because they should have started this from the beginning.
Right.
And had the best shot out of the gate to get the highest amount. Because let's face it, whether it's a for sale by owner or not, it's still been on the market.
Yep.
And, there's people who watch them and wait to see how long it's gonna take, because they figure, week goes by, 2 weeks go by, in this kind of market, that's crazy. 3 weeks go by, oh, that price is gonna go way down now. And that's the sad part.
Yeah, so there are opportunities to help the early age for sale by owner. And if you can, if they're open-minded to having that conversation, sometimes you can get them to work with an agent, or you can get them to work with you or your team earlier on.
Plus, when it's that urgency situation, now with the agent will reach more buyers that probably didn't even know it was available.
Right.
And that helps the seller a tremendous amount.
Good. Any other takeaways, Mark?
I like the clarification, I definitely like that, that's why I was writing that down. I feel like you can use that right there. I wrote a bunch of Ranas. I wrote a bunch of Ranas and just.
Here, we have to put it up on the Ron is.
I use them all the time, I love them.
I run that.
But I like the clarification of the beginning of just, you know, we're here to help for sale owners attract a qualified buyer, and then getting into the questions.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they've heard that, but in your call, if you're developing rapport, and you ask that, and you make that simple statement, and then write into questions, you get over a lot of the knee jerks right there.
That's right.
Even though they've heard it before.
They've heard before, but it should pique their interest enough to like, where if you get into the questions, they, like you said, they're willing to entertain you.
Right.
Because they're like, okay, this.
Oh, I just dropped it.
Oh.
The other Ronism I really liked is what is the single most thing that you want to avoid? That's something I haven't used with for sale by owners. I haven't known enough to use
Oh,
it, so.
yeah, I like that one.
I
too. Like,
really
what's your
like that.
biggest problem with, you know?
And let the agent solve that problem, but once you know it,
Right.
that's great, because that's a great reason for you to get the agent on the phone with them, because maybe they can solve that for them right now.
Right, I feel like that there's a ton of live transfers built into that question.
Huge,
Right there.
huge.
You know,
And I think, I like the word avoid.
Yeah.
What are you looking to avoid in this transaction, or what are you looking to avoid when you're selling something? But we don't wanna say the word problem.
No,
or anything.
no,
What are you
no,
looking
just
to
say,
avoid?
what are you looking to avoid?
yeah. I don't think any of the people that are just banging the phones are asking that
No
question.
way.
No way.
No way. That's a good question.
Instead of saying problem,
That's a good
just use
question.
the word issue. What issue
What
do
do
you
you-
want
yeah,
to
there you go.
avoid?
What
It's
issue-
not a
what
problem.
issue or-
What issue are you trying to avoid?
Yeah.
You know, what is it? You're
That-
doing this for a reason.
That would be a great Columbo question. That would be a great Columbo question. When they're like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in working with you.
Yeah, right.
Or, yeah, look, I'm doing this on my own, whatever that knee jerk is, or that
Before I let you go.
Hey, look, before I let you go, let me ask you.
I love that.
What issues are you looking to avoid in this
This
transaction?
scenario. That conversation going
Because it's
another
something
10
they
minutes.
really, it's something,
That's a great
it's something that they have the squirrel running in their
Perfect
head
for
all the
Columbo.
time, that
Yeah.
they think about,
Yeah.
but no one's ever asked them.
That's right.
So they're like,
Squirrel running.
But you show, that's, the question shows
Yeah.
genuine, I concern for you, I wanna
That's
help
right.
you.
That's right.
It's about you, not the house anymore, about
Yeah.
you. That's key.
That's good. That's good. So anyway, whether you're on our prospecting and automated marketing platform, or whether you're watching this through the Ultimate Listing Machine Masterclass, we hope you found this session helpful, and we're gonna take a deeper dive into the actual scripts and dialogues to use with for sale by owners tomorrow. And I think we got some good takeaways. So let's make some money today.
Absolutely.
Sound good? All right.